You're being robbed in broad daylight, and not by some hooded bloke in an alleyway, nah mate, by your own bloody government. Yeah, I said it. Anthony Albanese and his mob in Canberra have pulled off what might be the biggest daylight heist in Aussie history. And the worst part, most Aussies are too busy trying to survive to even notice the hit job happening right under their noses. But once you see the full picture, you'll be spewing. Before we rip into this Albanese Chalmers disaster, where Albo smiles while Australia burns, Chalmers quietly plans to tax your house before you've even sold it, and the media acts like everything's fine. Smash that like button like you're erasing every Labor policy from your bank account. Subscribe if you're sick of being robbed by your own government, and chuck on the "Tax Me If You Dare" shirt. Wear it to your next protest, council meeting, or just to Woolies while watching your grocery bill explode. Links in the description. Keep the shirt as it is. Just make sure they see it. You know things are crook when even the bloke at your local servo reckons we're in a recession. And he's right. Australia is officially neck deep in a per capita recession. But instead of hitting the brakes and helping struggling families, Anthony Albanese is flying off to photo ops while the country burns financially. I mean, how out of touch do you have to be to tell Aussies it's all under control while people are skipping dinners, selling off cars, and moving back in with their bloody parents? I was at Bunnings the other day, the spiritual heart of this nation, and overheard two tradies saying they've started carpooling because they can't afford fuel anymore. Let that sink in. Tradies. In Australia. Can't afford fuel. If that doesn't scream economic emergency, I don't know what does. And yet Albo reckons this is all manageable. Mate, you couldn't manage a meat tray raffle. Under Anthony Albanese, we've got rising mortgage rates, record-breaking rent spikes, grocery bills that make you gag, and power bills that feel like you're funding a small war. But sure, mate, tell us again how real wages are growing. You can't eat stats, Albo. You can't pay rent in GDP charts. Tell that to Sarah, a single mum in Western Sydney, who broke down crying in front of me because Woolies hiked the price of baby formula again. And her boss just cut her hours because their cafe's bleeding cash. Everyday Aussies are bleeding while the Albanese government pretends everything's just peachy. But let's get real. Our economy grew by a pathetic 0.2% last quarter, and that's before you count population growth. Once you do that, every Aussie's share of the pie shrinks. It's like 10 blokes sharing a pizza, and then 3 more rock up uninvited. But the pizza stays the same size. Thanks to Albo's immigration bonanza, our population's growing faster than our economy, and now everyone's starving. This isn't just a recession, this is policy-induced economic sabotage. And the Albanese government is driving the getaway car. Let's talk housing. Albanese promised affordability, right? But now, first home buyers are taking nearly 10 years just to save for a deposit. Imagine telling your kid that they'll be living with you until their 30s. That's the Australian dream under Albo. Mortgage slavery or couch surfing forever. And if you're lucky enough to actually own a home, don't celebrate yet, because Jim Chalmers wants to tax the value of your home before you even sell it. Yep, you heard that right. They're eyeing up your house like it's the government's piggy bank. They don't care if you've worked 30 years to pay it off. In fact, they resent you for it. According to Albo and his mates, equity is just untapped revenue for the state. Forget retirement, forget financial independence. Now you're just a renter with extra paperwork. I spoke with a bloke in Melbourne. Retired firefighter, 2 grandkids. Paid off his house fair and square. Now he's being told he might owe tens of thousands in new taxes because of housing equity fairness reforms. Fairness? What's fair about fleecing the people who built this country? You reckon Anthony Albanese is going to slap a wealth fairness levy on his own investment portfolio? Yeah, right. This mob wouldn't touch the top end of town with a 10-foot pole. They'll just keep milking the middle class dry. 'Cause you're easier to control when you're broke and desperate. Meanwhile, the Reserve Bank's jacking up interest rates like they're on a sugar high, pretending it'll fix inflation. But the only thing it's fixing is the number of Aussies headed for bankruptcy. How's that working out, Jim? The RBA's got mortgage holders dangling by a thread while Albo gives press conferences about resilience. Mate, the only thing resilient is how much punishment Aussies are copping without revolting. And don't even get me started on power bills. We were promised cheaper energy under Labour, remember? Green revolution, renewable future, all that jazz. But somehow, your power bills doubled, and your lights still flicker when the kettle's on. How's that possible? It's because the whole system's a mess. The energy market is rigged, the policies are backwards, and Albanese's government couldn't power a barbecue without over-regulating it first. I was in Adelaide a few weeks ago. Manufacturing conference, right? Small biz owners practically in tears. Power bills up 200% in 3 years. One bloke said it's now cheaper to make his products in Indonesia. Another's moving operations offshore next year. We're gutting our own industry because Albo wants to transition the economy. But transition into what? A service-based wasteland of Uber drivers and baristas fighting over $28 an hour? Australians are working harder than ever and getting bloody nowhere. Labour productivity is in freefall, but the only ones who don't seem to notice are the blokes in Canberra. Why? Because they're still on six-figure salaries, flying business class and dining on taxpayer dollars. When was the last time Anthony Albanese cooked his own dinner, huh? Or paid a power bill? Or looked at a Woolies receipt and felt sick? Never. He's too busy signing checks for his next climate summit trip. I don't blame people for being angry. I blame them for not being angrier. If you're not fired up right now, you're not paying attention. This isn't just about interest rates and inflation. This is about a government that's lost the bloody plot. And if we don't call them out, they'll keep bleeding us dry until there's nothing left. In Perth, I met Lisa, a nurse with over 10 years on the job. Solid worker, 3 kids. She told me her rent just jumped another $50 a week. She doesn't buy takeaway anymore. Hasn't taken a holiday since 2020. Grocery bills up, car's on its last legs, and she's still expected to pay more tax because she earns a hair over the bracket threshold. I'm being punished for working hard, she told me, and she's right. Under Albanese, success isn't rewarded, it's penalised. Meanwhile, the job market is a joke. They'll tell you unemployment's low, but go out and ask around. Thousands have lost full-time jobs and been replaced with casual gigs that barely pay the bills. A mate of mine, graphic designer, used to do 40 hours a week. Now he's scraping by on 15. You think Centrelink helps? Nah, they just bounce in between phone lines until he gives up. Welcome to the new Aussie dream. Be overworked, underpaid, and ignored. And let's talk migration. This bit's gonna ruffle feathers, but too bad. Albanese's government is pushing mass immigration at record levels, and it's hammering our economy. Now, before you yell, racist, calm your farm, I'm talking numbers. Our infrastructure can't cope. Housing's already unaffordable, and the hospitals are bursting. But sure, let's bring in 500,000 people a year with no plan to house or support them. Genius policy, mate. Don't believe me? Check the stats. GDP per capita, that's the real economic health check, is down. But overall, GDP is up. That means the economy's growing because there's more people, not because we're doing better. Albanese is padding the numbers so it looks like we're not in a recession, when we absolutely are. It's statistical smoke and mirrors. A trick, a scam, and it's coming at your expense. I met Josh and Emma, young couple from Brisbane, both working full-time. Been saving for 5 years, doing everything by the book. Still can't afford a place. Every time they get close, prices jump another 10%. We're just running in circles, Josh told me. And yeah, that's what it feels like. Albanese keeps preaching about affordability while throwing fuel on the fire. It's like putting out a blaze with a jerry can. And don't think your job's safe either. Forecasts say unemployment's heading to 4.5%, underemployment to 10%. That means more people chasing fewer jobs. And with AI automation ramping up, even middle-class office gigs aren't safe anymore. You know what's safe? Being a politician. Job security, fat pension, no accountability. Must be nice. Now here's the real kicker. The same politicians screwing us over are the ones who'll fix it. Albanese will roll out a few token tax cuts, mostly for the high earners who don't need them, and tell us it's progress. Meanwhile, small businesses will keep closing. families will keep defaulting on mortgages, and the government will keep handing out press releases like they're band-aids on a bullet wound. But the worst part? The media's asleep at the wheel. Or worse, complicit. You won't hear this on the ABC. They're too busy talking about identity politics and diversity quotas to report on the financial collapse happening outside their office. Most journos wouldn't know economic hardship if it smacked them in the face with a $600 power bill. So here's the truth, raw and unfiltered. Australia is being hollowed out. Our economy is a facade. Our leaders are actors. And if you think it can't get worse, strap in, because the next 18 months are going to be rough. Real rough. The OECD's already downgraded us. Economists are bracing for deeper contraction, and we're not prepared. And here's what no one's telling you. It's going to hit hardest in the suburbs, in the bush, in the communities already stretched thin. Not the city elites, not the political class, not the hedge fund managers, you. But it doesn't have to end this way. You can fight back with your wallet, your vote, your voice. Start by cutting spending. Build a buffer. Kill your debt. Diversify your income. Get political. Get loud. Because Anthony Albanese and his crew aren't going to save you. They're too busy saving their own asses. You know what really takes the piss? The fact that every time someone calls out this train wreck of an economy, Albanese and his loyal parrots in the media brush it off like it's just some temporary hiccup. Oh, it's global forces, they say. It's the remnants of COVID, they say. It's international interest rates. Nah, mate. Let's be honest for once. This mess is homegrown. Built right here under the nose of Anthony Albanese and Jim Bloody Chalmers, fertilized by their clueless policies. And now it's blooming into a full-blown national crisis. Now let's not forget, Albo came into office on a platform of change and fairness. What a bloody joke. You'd get more fairness in a pub brawl. The only thing that's changed is the size of the hole in your wallet. This isn't Labor being caught off guard. This is Labor being exactly who they are. Career politicians who've never had to run a business, miss a rent payment, or live off 2-minute noodles at the end of the month. Want to hear something wild? In the last 3 months alone, over 45,000 full-time jobs have vanished into thin air. Vanished. But somehow the official unemployment rate still says 4.1%. How? Because they cook the books. They don't count people working 1 shift a week. They don't count people who've given up looking. And they sure as hell don't count the people living on Centrelink who'd rather be flipping burgers than stuck in a loop of government red tape. Anthony Albanese knows this. Jim Chalmers knows this. But as long as the headline number looks good, they don't give a toss what's really happening on the ground. You want to know what I saw last week? A bloke named Terry, 50-something, in a high-vis vest, standing outside a Centrelink in Geelong, tearing up because he just got let go from the factory he's worked at for 26 years. I don't even know how to use a bloody computer, he said. How am I supposed to compete with uni kids for work? That's the Australia we're living in under Albo, a country where hard work and loyalty mean stuff all if your skills aren't digital. But here's the real kicker. While Aussies like Terry are scrambling to survive, Anthony Albanese and his Ministry of Economic Destruction are blowing money like confetti. Billions on net zero virtue signalling. More billions on expanding the public sector. They're hiring diversity consultants and flying bureaucrats to international conferences, while food banks in Sydney are running out of bread. Priorities, hey? Meanwhile, your granddad's pension? Worth less every year. Your super? Getting raided by inflation. And your savings? Erased faster than you can say, cost of living crisis. But Albo keeps smiling for the cameras like everything's sweet. It's not sweet, mate. It's bloody sour. And we're the ones choking on it. Have you noticed how they love using fancy phrases to mask the rot? Transition economy, per capita growth stagnation, temporary inflationary pressures. It's all a load of marketing fluff. The truth is simpler. The economy's stuffed, And the people steering the ship have no bloody clue what they're doing. Take the housing market. It's beyond cooked. Under Albanese, the idea of owning a home has gone from a rite of passage to a delusional fantasy. A young couple working full-time in 2025 has less chance of owning a home than they did in 1995. That's not progress. That's failure. And what does Labor propose to fix it? More red tape, more zoning reviews, more bureaucrats on six-figure salaries looking into it. It's like giving a bloke who's drowning a clipboard and a report on how deep the water is. And don't forget the landlords, the ones getting smashed with taxes and compliance costs, only to be vilified in the media. Some of them are just ordinary Aussies who scrape together enough to buy a second property as their retirement plan. Now they're the bad guys? Under Albo, if you succeed, if you get ahead, you're a target. It's the same script with small businesses. Albanese claims to support Aussie enterprise, but his policies are strangling the very backbone of our economy. Payroll tax increases, minimum wage hikes without support, energy bills through the roof. Small cafes, retail shops, tradie outfits, they're shutting their doors. And once they're gone, they're not coming back. Do you reckon the Albanese government cares? They'll just funnel more money to bloated corporate partners and call it stimulus. And what about regional Australia? Forgotten. Completely. Farmers are screaming for help, drowning in debt, watching their crops rot while the government rolls out climate policies from some inner-city think tank that's never touched dirt. Albanese could have helped. He could have offered tax relief, reduced regulation, improved freight routes. Instead, he's too busy approving wind farms and buying photo ops in the CBD. This next part might fry your brain, but it's true. Jim Chalmers, the treasurer, the bloke meant to protect our economy, has floated the idea of taxing unrealized capital gains. You heard that right. You could be taxed not on what you earn, but on what your property or shares are worth on paper. Let that sink in. Say your house goes up in value by 100 grand, even if you haven't sold it. Bam. You owe tax. It's pure insanity. And Anthony Albanese hasn't ruled it out. In fact, he's been suspiciously quiet on it, which tells me he's not opposed. He's just waiting for the right moment to spring it on us. And here's what they're really scared of. You. Yep, you. A well-informed, fired-up Aussie who's had enough of being lied to. That's why they try so hard to keep you distracted. Bread and circuses, mate. Sport, celebrity drama, social media doom scrolling. Anything to stop you from noticing that your government is strip mining your bank account while blaming everyone else. They blame the Reserve Bank. They blame global markets. They blame climate change. Hell, they'll blame daylight savings before they ever admit their own policies are the reason you can't afford petrol and Weet-Bix anymore. And here's something that'll really set your hair on fire. The Albanese government is considering a social license score system. It's not public yet, but insiders reckon there are talks about tying government benefits, travel, and even employment opportunities to your social impact profile. Sound familiar? That's because it reeks of China's social credit system. Just imagine your Uber rating, your Twitter posts, your political opinions, all contributing to whether or not you can get a home loan. Far-fetched? Maybe. But remember how ridiculous lockdown passports sounded in 2019? Exactly. You see, it's all about control, and debt is the ultimate leash. When you're drowning in bills, juggling 3 casual jobs and barely scraping by, you don't fight back. You obey. You comply. You shut up and pay your taxes. That's the Australia Anthony Albanese is building, one where we're too exhausted to resist. But here's the good news. And yeah, there's some left. Australians have been through worse. We're battlers. We survived the 90s recession, the GFC, bushfires, droughts, even Vegemite going out of stock for a week. We can get through this too, but only if we snap out of the coma. Only if we call it what it is. Economic vandalism dressed up as governance. And we've got to hit back where it hurts. First, don't let them divide us. This isn't left versus right, city versus bush, young versus old. It's us, the people who live here, versus the parasites leeching off our future. The moment we stop blaming each other and start pointing fingers at the people actually in charge, that's the moment things change. Second, vote smarter. Don't fall for empty slogans and toothy smiles. Demand accountability. Demand transparency. Ask the hard questions at town halls. Write to your MP. Show up. Be loud. They work for us, not the other way around. Third, support each other. Buy local. Help your mates. Share knowledge. Trade skills. The more we build community resilience, the less power these clowns have over us. You don't need Albo's handouts when your neighbor's got your back and you've got theirs. And finally, stay mad. Stay furious. Rage, when channeled, is power. Let it drive you to take action, to educate others, to resist the quiet economic tyranny happening in this country. Because make no mistake, they want you sedated. They want you quiet. They want you grateful for the crumbs they throw. Don't give them the satisfaction. You know what we need? We need another eureka moment. Not with guns, not with pitchforks, but with voices. Millions of voices screaming in unison. Enough! Enough of the lies. Enough of the theft. Enough of watching our country decay while career politicians pose for Instagram selfies. And to Anthony Albanese, if you're watching, which you won't be, because this video isn't getting played at Parliament House dinner parties. Listen up. The Aussie people aren't stupid. We're not weak. And we're not buying your spin anymore. You can play the Mr. Nice Guy routine on Q&A, but we see you. You're the smiling face of a broken system, and history will remember your government not for its compassion or progress, but for overseeing one of the greatest wealth transfers and economic betrayals in modern Australian history. So yeah, we're in a recession, a bad one, and it's not going away anytime soon. But we're also waking up. And once Aussies wake up, they don't go back to sleep. That's the truth. Raw, controversial, and completely unavoidable. If you've made it this far, don't just sit there. Share this, talk to your mates, wake them up. And if you're really fired up, go chuck on the "Tax Me If You Dare" shirt and head down to your next council meeting. Make some noise. Australia isn't dead, but it's bloody close. And unless we act now, unless we get loud, informed, and relentless, the Australia we grew up loving will be buried under bureaucratic bloat, unsustainable debt, and globalist fantasies. Stay loud, stay awake, and never, never let Anthony Albanese and his cronies think they got away with it.